I happened to watch a bit of EWTN's Holy Thursday Mass, and I tried to recognize the priests who were saying Mass. The celebrant of Mass was Archbishop Christophe Pierre, the papal nuncio to the United States. He was scheduled to be the guest speaker for a heretical group of priests, the Association of United States Catholic Priests. I think their meeting is in June and it might be rescheduled. But anyway, the fact is that he embraces a heretical group, and he was saying Mass at the Basilica in Washington, D.C. on EWTN. Reading the Gospel at that Mass was none other than Msgr. Walter Rossi. Apparently he was under investigation by his home diocese, the Diocese of Scranton, Pennsylvania, and the Archdiocese of Washington, because he is the director of the National Basilica, and he was under investigation for referring young men to a homosexual predator priest. Vigano said that Msgr. Rossi is part of the gay mafia. Considering that Rossi is publicly allowed to say Mass, who knows the status of the Rossi investigation? Msgr. Rossi is apparently part of the network of McCarrick and Worrell, the corruption network in the church. And speaking of McCarrick, the McCarrick report was supposed to be released by the Vatican in early 2020. Apparently Pope Francis does not have time to release that report, but he does have time to organize a commission on women deacons. This is the second women deacon commission that he organized. This commission includes Father Manfred Hauck. He actually is strongly opposed to women deacons, so that's good. LifeSite News has profiles of the members of the commission, so if you're interested, check that out. There are 2 American professors on the commission. Both happen to actually be married deacons, and married deacons are a fabrication of Vatican II, so I wonder what their opinions are on this topic. What Taylor Marshall said in one of his videos is he thinks the Pope is trying to get to the point where women are allowed to preach the homily and they're allowed to read the gospel. And if this happens in your church, you must leave. You have no other option but to leave. Any bishop who supports the ordination of women and who actually will ordain women potentially is a heretic. They are schismatic. Now, I don't know the canonical implications of attending a Mass in a diocese where the bishop is a schismatic. I don't really want to go there at this point. I don't want to speculate too much on that. But I will say that Bishop McElroy in San Diego has expressed his support for women deacons. Now, getting back to Pope Francis, in 2016 he said that women cannot be ordained. The church has already decided that. But here he is trying to get people to study the ordination of women, and there's no reason to look into something heretical. Now, a few weeks ago he blessed people on TV with a monstrance in empty St. Peter's Square. A lot of people were saying this is the defining moment of his papacy. Pope Francis had a change of heart and now he's super traditional. And this commission on women deacons proves that he hasn't changed. The defining moment of his papacy is still the Pachamama incident in the Vatican garden. If Pope Francis truly had a change of heart, he would direct that an exorcism be performed in the Vatican and all the churches that had the Pachamama idols in them. He would tear up the Vatican Chinese deal document. He would remove some of the heretical and predator cardinals, and he would stop promoting this false Jesuit theology. Lately he has been on a kick about how Judas was actually a good guy, he wasn't actually that bad, and there are a few tweets I'd like to share with you. In a speech he said, "How did Judas end? I don't know. Woe to that man from whom the Son of Man is betrayed. Better for that man if he had never been born. Does this mean that Judas is in hell? I don't know. Look at the gospel, and I see Jesus call him friend." In a tweet, Pope Francis said, "We will be judged on our relationship with the poor. When Jesus says, 'The poor you will always have with you,' he is saying, 'I will always be with you in the poor. I will be present there.' This is at the center of the gospel, so much so that we will be judged on it." So, a few things here. He completely misinterprets the gospel passage. This gospel passage is referring to how Judas was a social justice warrior. When the woman used perfume to wash Jesus' feet, Judas said, "We could have sold that perfume and used the money to help the poor." By Jesus correcting Judas, he was speaking out against the social justice warriors who say, "Oh, you shouldn't spend any money on churches, you should give that money to the poor." And the Pope says that this is at the center of the gospel. I thought the Eucharist was at the center of the gospel. Getting back to the poor, if the Pope wanted to help the poor, he could clear up the financial corruption in the Vatican Bank and use that money to help the poor. But until the Pope cleans up all this financial fraud, false theology, this homosexual network in the church, until he cleans all of that up, the corruption network will continue to run the church.